I've been following Jesus for about 5 years. I really didn't understand what following him looked like until about 6 months ago, when my intimacy with him started to grow rapidly. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's start at the beginning. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I didn't know anything about Christianity, and I probably had never heard that word before. If you were to have looked at our family, on the outside, you probably would have thought, things are pretty good. No serious problems. Average family. But behind closed doors, this was so far from the truth. In my home, love was conditional, harsh, and twisted. There were no words of love that I can recall. No hugs, no parental encouragement, no understanding or genuine concern that I could see. Our home was filled with anxiety. We all had our own coping strategies. It seemed everyone was just trying to make it through the day in whatever way they could. We did come together on Saturdays when I was older to play cards, but every other day of the week, we just retreated to our own individual places to essentially hide. Dinner conversations were superficial. Often there were large, uncomfortable, awkward gaps in conversation. No one had anything to say. We could only talk about the weather for so long. No one knew how to have meaningful conversation. My family had no skills or strategies in place in order to have healthy relationships. We didn't know where to start, and I'm sure fear was a big factor. I remember one event in particular that would leave a huge scar on my soul. I don't remember what I said to my mom. I only remember her response, which was, "If I want to hear from you, I'll rattle your cage." She had no idea how damaging this was. It led to a lifetime of people-pleasing, insecurity, and fear. I was afraid to express any sort of opinion. Getting shot down once was enough. I voiced an opinion if I was pressed to do so, but voicing an opinion made me feel scared and insecure. I was always shy and thought this was part of my personality. I wanted to become invisible and worked really hard to achieve this. Invisibility to me meant some degree of safety. In many ways, my home was not safe. Unsafe mentally, emotionally, and physically. Home could be a scary place. At a very young age, I developed harmful, self-destructive behaviors. I remember my mom trying many different things to try and break these, but nothing worked. Some of these coping behaviors still continue. I found out about 4 years ago when I was talking to my counselor that they are a result of anxiety. I just thought they were bad habits. There were things I did in secret to physically punish myself. I believed I deserved it. I'd never be good enough. I'd never be loved. High school wasn't filled with thoughts of parties and friends and hanging out. Instead, I was obsessed with suicidal thoughts. It seemed so many days were a struggle. I would plan in my mind how to kill myself and then rule it out, because I didn't know how to get my hands on the stuff that I needed. One night, I decided to end it all. I took a tall glass into the bathroom and locked the door. I knocked it off the counter and picked the sharpest piece I could find. I started to slice my wrist, but I stopped myself. I just couldn't go through with it. I cleaned up the glass, bandaged my wrist, and walked around like nothing was wrong. It was a cry for help that was met with silence and what felt like a difference. Later, my sister asked about it. I told her what I did, and I never wanted to speak about it again. I had developed insomnia and spent years laying awake in the dark alone with my thoughts, which were tormenting. My identity was set, loser, waste of space, worthless. Around 1985, I met my future husband, and we married in 1989. I saw him treat others badly, but I told myself he would never treat me that way. He loved me. I couldn't see the warning signs. I didn't recognize any of them. I didn't know what warning signs were. I was so happy after I was married. Finally, somebody loved me. I was under the impression that my husband was responsible for my happiness. This was impossible, of course. Over the years, his behavior continued to be abusive, but I could never bring myself to say anything to him about it. I didn't recognize his behavior as abusive. I thought I deserved everything. I'd also learned my lessons so well to never offer an opinion. We had 2 children, and I was happy for a short time. My husband would do and say hurtful things to our children, but again, I was too afraid to speak up. I didn't protect them from the harmful behaviors of myself or my husband. This grieves my heart. I lived in fear. A dark feeling of dread had settled over me and lasted for about 5 years. It took the joy out of motherhood, and it took the joy out of life. After about 15 years into the marriage, I realized the marriage had been a mistake, but I was too terrified to leave. The thoughts of leaving with 2 children was overwhelming. I felt trapped. How could I ever make it on my own? My mind told me this was simply impossible. I contemplated divorce, but felt like I was in a catch-22 situation. If I left, our children would be devastated by the effects of divorce. If I stayed, I'd be teaching them that abuse was acceptable. No matter what I did, no matter what decision I made, ultimately our children would be the ones losing out. I gave in to my fear and stayed for another 12 years. During this time, I died a little more on the inside each day, and my heart became like a block of concrete. I became someone I despised, selfish, prideful, resentful, bitter, and angry. My walls were incredibly high. I wouldn't let anyone in, and I wasn't going to come out either. I had been abused, but I had also become an abuser. My anger would explode at unexpected moments. One moment I was fine, the next minute I would snap, and it didn't take much. My anger was usually directed at our children. They must have felt so confused and scared at my behavior. By 2015, I just couldn't take it anymore. My decisions and dysfunctional behavior had left a wide trail of destruction. My own poor choices had ruined my life and hurt so many others. I decided to give God a chance. I was really scared. God was my only hope. I didn't trust Him, but following Him was better than the alternative. By this time, I felt hopeless. Alcohol had become my daily companion, and I figured I needed it just to make it through the day. I still didn't know at this point whether I should stay in my marriage or whether I should leave. I had heard that God hated divorce, and I didn't want to start off on the wrong foot with Him. Much of 2015 was spent in sporadic prayer, looking to God for an answer as to what I should do. By the spring of 2016, I had my answer, and I moved out of my matrimonial home a 2 months later. Unfortunately, I had to leave without my children, as I could not provide a home for them. Over the years, I've lived with friends and family, while the legal proceedings continue for my separation and my divorce. There seems to be no end in sight, but God's timing is perfect. I know He's got it all worked out. Having to leave on my own was devastating, and I've shed many tears over the years. But God has been so good to me in providing these homes for me. I continue to wait patiently and dream of the time when I'll have a place of my own, a place where I can invite my children to, where they will be comfortable. I praise the Lord. I know He's preparing the perfect home for us, a place where safety, love, truth, peace, and life will be found. There were so many broken pieces inside of me, I was like Humpty Dumpty. I didn't believe that I would ever be put back together again. God's working on this, and I can slowly see that He's putting me back together. Jesus rescued me from myself and gave me a new life. He's given me so much peace that it really does surpass all understanding. I never had a moment's peace until Jesus came into my life. This peace astounds me. Life with Him is an adventure. My intimacy with God continues to grow. I have moments of joy, and I'm hungry for His presence. He has promised me joy and wholeness, and I look forward to this. In the meantime, he and I are working together towards healing. I can taste the abundant life that he's offered, and I want more of it. If someone had told me years ago that life with Jesus would be amazing, I would have laughed in their face and called them a liar. But it's all true. Life with him is amazing. God knows what's best for me. I want to be obedient to his leading. My past track record proves that I have no clue what's good for me. I'm doing my best to try and keep Jesus in the middle of my relationships. There are many relationships I want him to restore, especially with my children. Jesus has freed me from alcoholism and other addictions. For that I am forever grateful. I've lost so much over the years, but all of it will be restored to me. God will make sure of that.
That's right. That's right.
I can hear God's voice more clearly than ever before. I'm learning to receive his unconditional love. I want his love to overflow inside of me so that I can give it away to others. God is transforming my heart and will continue to do so until I see him face to face. What a wonderful day that will be, seeing my Lord and Savior. Radical heart surgery is necessary for me. I don't care how much it hurts. After all, he's a great physician, among other things, and I trust him. Last year, God asked me to start visiting my mom on a regular basis. I didn't want to, but I did it anyway out of my love for him. Prior to this, when I visited her, it was only a few times a year. I could sit in her presence for maybe about 10 minutes and then I wanted to run away, and I did. Now I can sit and enjoy our visits together. Only God is capable of helping me do this. I've discovered that my mom and I have more in common than I would have ever thought. Our time together has been a blessing for both of us. Jesus is real, alive and inside of me. My past doesn't define me. My mistakes, sins, regrets, and failures don't define me. No weapon formed against me will stand. I am chosen, treasured, made new, loved unconditionally, a daughter of the Most High King. I am set apart and a masterpiece. Nothing can separate me from my Daddy's love. Jesus comforts, provides, protects, guides, mends broken hearts, and does so much more. He is who he says he is, and all of his promises are true. Let Jesus truly transform your life. Fasten your seatbelt. It'll be a wild, bumpy ride, but I promise it'll be worth it. Thank you for listening to my story.